magic number. Yes, it is. It's the magic number.
What does it all mean?
Hello and welcome to Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy. That's me, Matthew Syed. This week, the meatiest topics of the series so far. The Ben Stokes controversy. And what are we teaching our kids these days? Remember to use the hashtag FredSavSide. Suggest future topics you'd like to hear us talk about. Topic number one, and this, we have had so many tweets about this. A lot of people very keen to get Freddie's perspective. 2 or 3 also looking to hear Robbie's. Ben Stokes. That was mainly him under pseudonyms. Ben Stokes is not travelling to Australia with the team on the 28th of October. A video has been released of him, it looks like, in a brawl with people at a nightclub. Question is, should Stokes play in the Ashes? One of the best players, a talismanic player, or should he be sanctioned for behaving in a way that a lot of people think is completely unacceptable for somebody wearing the England kit? Can I start with you, Fred? This is obviously a tough one.
It is a tough one, and I've been badgered ever since it happened for comment. And I've fallen out with a few people over it because I got a message from a BBC reporter on Twitter asking to do it, and I said, nothing to do with me, and then related it to some of the stuff I do. So I just tore him a new one saying, hang on a minute, mate, that's nothing to do. I tried to get on a little plastic boat in the West Indies. This is very, very different. And there's a few sides to it, to be honest. Before we get on to Ben, I've not enjoyed the way it's been portrayed. I think some people, ex-players, ex-captains, people in the media, people have tried to make a name for themselves through Ben. You know, before any facts came out, before anything came to light about what happened, all of a sudden people are jumping to assumptions, aren't they? Saying, this has happened, getting column inches in national newspapers. Well, actually, this is a police investigation. There's something going on. We've seen the video. I've watched the video.
Yeah,
and then you see it, and my interpretation of it is he looks like he's trying to do a good thing to begin with. But it's very hard. There's always two sides to everything, and we're not going to hear Ben's side for a while because the police are investigating something.
Should we just put some context on that? I mean, so a source close to Stokes has said that he initially got involved in the fight to protect 2 gay men who he worried would be the subject of a homophobic assault. Obviously, the police investigation hasn't taken its course yet. I agree with you 100%. It is in a category completely distinct from having a bit of a drunken escapade on a pedalo. And I think we need to emphasise that this is a police investigation. It's not just a matter of conduct. This is a criminal investigation. But as you say, presumption of innocence. We don't yet know all the facts. We haven't heard the full side of Ben's side of the story. I want to ask you some of the principles involved in a minute, Fred. But shall I just... Fred, Rob, what's your take on it?
Well, I've seen the video as well, and as Fred says, we don't know the circumstances. I'm just putting myself in that situation. If as a sportsman, not somebody who's well known as Ben Stokes, obviously, but in situations I would have found myself in the Ben Stokes scenario. You know, with my mates, I've been in nightclubs, I've been in situations where there's nothing. This is being completely honest. There would have been nothing more than I would have liked is to have a ruck with somebody. Because whether they've provoked you. Yeah, massively. You know, massively. Whether it's been spat at, whether it's been goaded in a nightclub, whether it's people, you know, trying on with your missus in a nightclub. I had one scenario once when I was in Wilmslow, and me and my wife Sarah were sitting at a table, and this guy had a few drinks, and he was quite a big fella. Come, put a chair next to my wife and sat there and didn't move. Stared at her. And I was thinking, what do I do here? What do I do here? So there's nothing more I would have liked to have done is to say, oh, you, mate, and I'd have up with him. Yeah. But I couldn't. I had to think, hang on a minute. Or if I do something here, I'm in massive trouble. I'm in massive trouble. So if I don't know the situation of Ben Stokes, you know, but I've been in situations where, and this might sound wrong, it might sound right, I would have loved to have a ruck with people who have goaded me, who have spat at me, who have insulted me, who's insulted my family, who's insulted my friends, but I just couldn't. I had to hold back.
I suppose it's worth making a distinction between the level of provocation that you get as famous people. You're a magnet to those who want to cause trouble and get in the newspaper. It doesn't mean you have to act on the provocation, of course. Doesn't mean that you have to start a ruck. But is the provocation...
But you're human.
Quite. Go on, Fred, if you had
I've been in that position before, but I'm I'm not necessarily an aggressive person. For me to go and have a fight, I think I'd have to get hit first. Yeah. Someone would have to hit me first, or something.
Self-defense.
Protecting someone, which I think Ben's protective instincts kicked in. You watch Ben Stokes as a cricketer. You watch him on a cricket field. You watch if anybody has a go at any of the team. Who's the first man in there protecting everyone? He's got that protective nature. He's got protective instincts. You watch him when it's kicking off. He'll always get involved. He'll stand up for his teammates. He'll stand up for his mates. If there's a big moment in any game, Ben Stokes, he is in there. He has got that side to his temperament where he's up for the battle. And I think we saw that in that clip when he was out and about. In some ways, you can't have the player without the personality. But it has to be tempered. Yeah. It has to be helped to control that temper, control that character. And also, I don't understand how he's in this position. I don't understand how he's out in Bristol at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning on his own with Alex Hales. You know, we've had security with the England team since I was playing. Whether he snuck out, whether he didn't want to tell anyone, I'm not for 1 second. I know Red Jude as a security saying he didn't do his job, but shouldn't be in that position. But there's the other side of it where Ben actually, I think, needs some help. Yeah. It's easy to have a go at him and easy to put him down. And I'm not for 1 second, dusting over what he's done because someone's been hurt in this. But Ben as well, I worry about.
Can I ask briefly? Robbie said that he gets provoked. People will come over and deliberately try and needle him to get into a fight because that will make the newspapers. Did you have any experience of that? And a lot of the people in the commentary about Stokes was, well, if he does go to the Ashes, the Aussies are going to needle him. And if he goes out anywhere in public, people have... Just give us, what was it like for you?
They're going to do that anyway. You go to Australia and it's a different place to go. It really is. Mm-hmm. You travel over there, even the immigration people, even the people when you get there are hard work. Oh, they are, yeah. They make you empty your bags and everything. They said, you got any wood in there, mate? I said, well, I've come here to play cricket. There's a good chance there's a couple of bats in there. Let me see them. Are your shoes clean? You got to clean your boots. And they don't make anything easy. Yeah. I think that was a thing we found in 2006-07. As soon as we got there, everywhere we went, people driving past, winding the windows down just to let you know how bad you are.
Really?
And then even when you're eating, people, it's just it was a different place. So, Ben's not going at this moment in time.
Let me present a hypothetical. If it turns out, having heard the evidence, that he went way too far, the violence was unjustifiable, do you think that a governing body of sport has a responsibility to issue a sanction against the player, like missing the Ashes, because otherwise it sends all the wrong signals to young people that you're allowed to play so long as you're good enough, even if you go and beat someone up?
Yeah.
Where's the line?
The line is pretty simple. I think there's laws in this land. And I think sometimes as a sportsman or sometimes as someone in the public eye, especially when you're a bit younger, you almost think they don't apply to you as much. And then you take them, not for granted a little bit, but you push the boundaries a little bit of what you can do and what you can't do. But surely it's a case of you're innocent till proven guilty, aren't you? Mm-hmm. But I can understand Andrew Strauss and the ECB have to do something. They just can't let that slide. Yeah, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. There'll be more people than me who write columns on cricket who all have an opinion, and everyone's loving it, I think, because people are reading the pieces. But what is the right outcome?
Brearley said the same thing.
I don't know.
I feel deeply conflicted by it as well, because Brearley said he doesn't know the full context, and therefore it's difficult to issue a judgment. But he had different circumstances for sure, but he had people in the England team who occasionally behaved in a way that was unacceptable, but he wanted to have the best players in the team. He wanted to give them help to overcome some of the problems that they have psychologically or otherwise, but at the same time you don't want to give a blank cheque for the best players to do whatever they want, knowing that pragmatically you want them in the team, because otherwise... Rob, where do you think, as a general rule, in football, cricket or anywhere else, where is the line? That if a player crosses it, you say, sorry, you're not playing for our club for a certain period of time?
Where is the line? I think all clubs will have their own disciplinary action. For instance, when I played, you weren't allowed to drink 48 hours before a game. Mm-hmm.
It was compulsory for us.
Compulsory. And in recent times, you've had all the debate about Sergio Aguero. Was he wrong or was he right to be in Amsterdam after the Champions League game before a big game of the weekend, and he was involved, obviously, in that taxi incident when the taxi crashed. He broke a rib. That could have happened anywhere. And I've got no problem with Aguero being in Amsterdam on a day off, because, Matthew, it would have took him longer to get to London on a train from Manchester than it would have to Amsterdam. He probably got a private jet. He lives in Manchester.
He can chill out in Amsterdam, can't he? Wink, wink.
He was probably coming back on the plane the same night.
Yeah.
So that taxi, unfortunately, could have happened anywhere, but it was highlighting more kids out of the country. I've got no problem with that. I think far too much was made about that. Obviously, in terms of being out of the country, obviously, but we wish him all the best to get better soon, and it's a loss for Man City.
I'm trying to find out where you're going to draw the line. Let's say it was the day before,
That's
2 days
unacceptable.
before.
Day before is unacceptable.
Okay, what would you do as a manager? Remember, they don't have curfews in the England cricket team. They're supposed to be adults.
You shouldn't have curfews. I always struggle with curfews.
People break curfews.
So what would you do then if they're out in drinking a day before a game? What would you do?
A day before?
Yeah. All right, 3 or 4 pints is fine. What?
The day before a game?
What? I'd draw the line at 7. What?
So listen, 3 days, Matthew. The incident happened 3 days before the next one day. I have got I've got no problem with that.
Okay.
Going out and enjoying a drinking session with a teammate 3 days before. And let's be fair, was it a 20-20 or a 50 over game?
50.
50 over game. So.
By the way, Jake Ball, Liam Plunkett, Johnny Bairstow, all undisclosed fines for unprofessional conduct because of their late return to the hotel.
3 days before the game.
Yeah, but to me, this is one of them, right?
OTT.
I remember the Pedalo incident. And it's all gone.
Do you remember it?
I remember waking up.
On the beach, wasn't it?
In my bed somehow. Sand and water and everything everywhere. I thought, what happened last night? extra, read all about it. So we turn up, right? And then next day there's a crisis team meeting called. And we walked into a room, the team room, and there's a flip chart up, all with our initials on. And then one by one, Duncan Fletch said, I want you to get up there and write your name on the board, what time you came in.
Really?
So the lads are going up one by one, and some lads are put in 12:30. Some have come up with a very, very, what's the word?
Good excuse.
Not excuse, but collaborated to make sure they were fine. Because a 12 o'clock curfew had just came
out.
Alibi. We've never had an alibi. We've never had a 12 o'clock curfew. So lads have got up and put 2 o'clock, 3:30. They get fined. The bowling coach, bless him, he'd not seen his brother for 10 years. He bumped into him for a few pints. Not been out all winter. 12:30 fined.
No.
So this curfew came from nowhere. I went up there, put 3:30. I did myself out of 2 hours. Apparently, I got in at 1:30. So I'm not really on with curfews, but just moving this on a little bit.
Yeah.
We can argue the toss on the timing, this, that, and the other. The problem is, irrespective of if there was a game 2 or 3 days later, is he got into a fight?
Yeah.
That is the main problem here. That is it. That is the problem. He's got into a fight.
Yeah.
He's punched a lad who's gone over.
I'm really glad you say that, because we've had a bit of a joke about drinking and where you should draw the line, but violence is morally in a completely different category. None of us would ever justify or legitimate what Stokes did to that person, even though we still need to find out the context. I think that's absolutely
horrible.
crucial.
I saw it when I was younger, out and about in Preston, and it goes off, and you get that horrible feeling in your pit of your stomach. When we was in Ibiza and that little fracard kicked off in front of us, you remember?
Yeah.
Nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
I get sickened by it.
It turns your stomach, and, I reckon Ben, he's had a lot of time to think about this, be interested to see what happened, but just throwing another thing into the mix, right?
Yeah.
I'm a massive Ben Stokes fan, and I'll back him up every day, and I'll speak about it. The hardest part for this, for me, has been actually explaining it to me kids. Yeah. My kids idolise Ben Stokes. They idolise Johnny Bairstow, Joe Root. They see things about what's happened. They've seen it in the press. They're on phones and social media. And when they ask, Dad, what's Ben Stokes done? How do I convey that to my kids? How do I tell them that?
Just because somebody is a great sports person and potentially a very good guy who you get on with, it doesn't mean that everything they do in their personal life is to be admired or copied. And it's worth saying once more, there is a presumption of innocence. He hasn't yet been charged, so we don't know the full facts. Can I ask one other question related, getting a nod from Mike as well? Tell you what really struck me listening to what you were saying about being provoked in nightclubs. It's not something that when you're low profile as an ex-table tennis player, you don't get anything like that. So it's difficult to imagine what it would be like to be in your shoes with your friends, having a drink with people hitting on your wife or spitting on you. That's horrendous. And trying to deal with that, particularly a young footballer or a young cricketer who might be saying, what is that like for a young famous man suddenly getting a lot of money?
When I was 19, I moved away from at 15, went to Salford to 19, never went out because the just wanted to be a footballer. So I had my first beer at 19, and it was the only pint I've ever had in my life, and must have been a bad pint, and I was physically sick so much after it, never touched a drop of beer again, so that was a good thing. Then I signed for Leicester, and I remember those were the days when, I had my wife. I've been going out with my wife for, a considerable number of years now. So, one scenario was when I signed for Birmingham, we were in a nightclub, me and my wife and all our friends. And I remember a young lady came up to me.
How many days before the game?
It was 3 days before the game. Yeah, 3 days before the game.
Yeah, okay.
And it was the most surreal experience ever. So I was standing there, my mates up from Wrexham, because you look, and Freddie will know this, when you get to a stage of your life, you want to look after your mates. You want to look after your mates all the time anyway. But the thing is, when you grow up with these people, that when you get quite successful and start earning a few quid, all you want to do is look after your mates and your best mates from school, take them out and not show off to them, but spoil them, because
just want to share everything
with them.
People.
And that's what I'm still like now. You want to share with them, so when we go away,
he's amazing at that. To be fair,
no, you do, because without those people around you, you wouldn't be where you are. So we get into the nightclub. My mates are with me. My wife's sitting with their friends on a table. Anyway, this young lady comes up and she says, "Oh, you signed for Birmingham, blah blah blah." And I saw my wife sitting over there, because the first thing you say, my wife's over there. And she said, "Oh, which one's your wife?" So I said, "Obviously the best looking one, isn't he?" So anyway, she came over and she went, right. Anyway, she stood there and she took her knickers off in front of me, took them over the shoes, and then went over to my wife and screwed them up and threw them in my wife's face.
No.
Honestly,
Josh.
Swear.
So,
yeah, honestly,
some woman's taken the knickers off, wrapped them in a shoe, and
no, not shoe, just wrapped them, screwed them up, and threw them in my wife's face. And my wife said, "What was all that about?" I said, "I've no idea." And it was like, wow. Do you know what I mean? And this was like one of the first experitions,
of what fame could potentially do.
And it was like, wow. Do you know what I mean? And the same you got to look at as well, Matthew. And being a famous person or sportsman as a Premier League player, Championship, whatever, or cricketer, you can flip it as well.
Yeah,
you can flip it around as well.
You can take advantage of your fame, and actually, to be honest, what's worth saying, if it's consensual. I mean, it's up to people how they live in their own private lives. I suppose if you're married, that complicates it to a very large extent. But I think it is quite interesting insight for people who haven't been in the England cricket team or a Premier League football team, that you go into a public place, you're being noticed, and people ask for autographs. We know about that. But the being provoked by other guys and potentially wanting a fight.
I had beer. I was in a nightclub. Do you remember what were the? You probably know fair about this. We used to go to this wine bar in Wrexham, and you could buy cans. Is it Stella? Stella. There were cans. Yeah. And I remember I was against the wall, and I had 3 cans of beer, hit the wall behind me, and exploded.
Really?
Yeah. I was 19, and I was I was playing for Crewe. I was Wrexham Crewe rivals, and I was there with a few of my mates, and 3 cans hit the wall behind me and exploded. If they'd have hit me in the face. Wow, honestly, they threw that hard. Yeah, they hit the wall behind me and went everywhere.
Well, this might.
And this is what people don't see. This is what people don't see. That all we are was human beings.
How did they miss your nose?
I was standing straight on, not sideways. Hey! But as I've said, I've been provocated so many times. Beer cans struck my head. I've said spatter. I've been punched in the head when I had my son. I've said that before on the podcast. Wow. Somebody come out of the crowd and punch me in the head and run. You've had horrible things said on social media, where if you've seen the person, you'd probably have a scrap with him. You would. I'm not... I understand in terms of sometimes, as a sportsman, you're a human being and your head can go. Your head can go.
Yeah.
But the consequences for you as that sportsman will be more devastating than a guy in the street.
And it's probably worth saying that even though celebrity, there are some challenges, there's lots of upsides too. And I'm sure you'd probably agree that the upsides are somewhat more than the downsides. Yeah. And just to reiterate, I just want to make this as clear as possible, because we chatted about it before we came on air. With the Stokes thing, there's a massive difference between going out and being drunk and compromising your performance and getting involved in a fight. So let's wait to see what happens. And last point,
One final thought on Ben. Do you know, one of the things that I found, even now and through a career, is, do you know when things are going well? Everyone's around you. Yeah. Everyone wants to be your mate. Everyone's like wanting to go out and buy you drinks, and you look around and you got all these people around you. Now, all of a sudden, Ben's in a bit of a pickle. And I just hope, I know with Neil Fairbrother, who looked after me when I was playing, who looks after Ben, he's got a great man there, and he'll have great teammates around him. He needs looking after. And I'm not, for 1 second...
Who looked after you, Fred? Who looked after you?
Neil Fairbrother, wife, friends.
You had a support network that helped you through the tough moment.
I did, but I was always not good at asking for help. It always got to a point of I needed almost like an intervention as opposed to asking for something. And I think Ben's at that point now. And I'm not saying what he did wasn't terrible and the bloke he's hit and all that, fine, but I'm just parking that for one side now, and I'm just solely Ben Stokes. In some ways, for me, you read some of the things that have been happening, and he's been living by the seat of his pants for a little bit now, and he's experienced that life in the public media. He's had this meteoric rise to stardom, which is always sometimes hard to cope with to begin with. You enjoy it, you reap the benefits out of it, but now, you know, he's had this thing where his eyes have been wide open, and hopefully this could be, in a bizarre way, the making of Ben Stokes. Not as a cricketer, because we know how good he is, but as a person. And he'll wake up to what it is, and I just hope it's not the end of him, because I think if that was the case, you've got to give him a chance to redeem himself. And knowing Ben as he does as a cricketer and a little bit as a person, he'll be desperate to do that. And I just hope we give him that opportunity.
I'm with you. He deserves a second chance. Rehabilitation is an absolute cornerstone of any civilised society. Thank you for listening.